Welcome in. It is day 337 and you're speaking to the Meeples Champion. And today we're going to be going over a game that is from back in the day. This is actually when I first started getting into the hobby, one of the games that a friend of a friend owned, and I got to play it once. So I haven't played this game now in roughly 15 years. It's been a while. So I had to do a little refresher, remind myself exactly how the game worked, but I know it's one that's still mentioned. I think it's a popular name, although it may not be as owned as it used to be these days. The game is called Power Grid. Now, if you're just looking at the board, well, it's not 100% reminiscent. It kind of looks like Ticket to Ride. It's the idea of, instead of it being a countrywide, like you see in something like that, where you're seeing it as landscape, it's actually more like electrical, and you're following all of the power grid stuff across major cities. And you're doing the same concept of trying to build your route. Now, it also reflects a bit of Catan, because instead of it simply being like in Ticket to Ride where you simply drop the connections, in this, you don't have to put down individual trains to make that one route. You still have to buy the route, but what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to make the route and get plants to produce things. And the plants kind of reflect the houses or the cities in Catan. Well, the spots between them represents your roads that you're building in Catan. That's kind of the two comparables I look at when I see this, but just on the surface level. The game really comes down to is you are trying to build a plant, expand, get resources to use that plant to power your cities. So early on in the game, you have all this money and you're going, okay, well, I need to spend this money to get a resource, or to make sure I get a plant to help produce a resource, to be able to make a connection between plants so that now that electricity is moving along. But you also are upgrading. So while it might be worth investing in some of your early plants, it may not always be worth it for you, because that plant may be short-lived and you might be upgrading it soon because you'd rather have the plants that come out later on, which are going to be more efficient, they're going to be better plants, and if all of a sudden you're running reasonably well and you spend a lot of your money, and now an opponent who wasn't doing good in the first few rounds has all their money still, and they come out and they go, oh, well, now I'm going to get this far superior plant, but instead of competing with 4 other people in this 5-player game, 2 of you don't want it at all, and then another one of them, they're kind of 50-50, they're like, I could upgrade, but I don't need to. And it's just a one-on-one fight, and now they're going to probably get that for way cheaper. And as a result, they're going to have a better running system, and they're going to have saved money, which they can invest into their extras, and they're going to just leapfrog you. It's a really interesting style game in this way, as you're bidding, but you also have to pay for resources, pay for plants, pay for your connections, you're upgrading, and at the end of the day, you're trying to, at the very minimum, be seeing if you can get in that range of 17 to 20 cities that you're powering by the end of the game to truly have a shot to compete for the win. It's an interesting game. There's a lot more to it than just this. Again, I haven't played the game in 15 years, so I'm just going over the very basics here. But why don't we jump in? Let's talk our 7 categories and see where this game lands for us. When it comes to the art, the board's okay. It's kind of crowded. You know, when you look at the games I just compared it to, Catan and Ticket to Ride, those are well-balanced boards. You don't feel like you have to scan them for every little detail that they're showing. You see the major points, and then you have a nice background picture. This one feels like they kind of crammed it. You know, it's almost like they should have made either fewer spots on the board or made a much bigger board that could spread things out, because it just feels like you've got a lot to look at. So I'm not a huge fan of the board. And the box is far worse than the board. The box is way too old. It feels like this was a box made from like the 70s or 80s. I believe the game was made in the 90s. I could be wrong there. But at very least, I know it was more popular back in the 90s. But it just doesn't work for me. It's a big thumbs down. Your components. So you got some cards, you got some wooden buildings to put out. You've also got the classic Monopoly style paper money. I hate paper money in a game. It's so easy to rip, crumple, ruin. To me, that's what, like, these games today, it may be a little bit more expensive, but the money is going to last. We had to go off to yard sales back in the day and just try to buy other people's throwaway Monopoly games to throw all the extra money into our big game to collect more, because I was from a big family with a bunch of kids and the money got ruined. That, to me, the game doesn't have anything else that's nearly as bad as the money, but the money drags down the components, and the components are just mediocre before that money. It's got to be a thumbs down. Price. When this game was popular and out and available all over the place, it was already expensive. This was like a $60 game minimum. But today, the game's not being reprinted. The game's not massively available. You can find it online. You might even see it in a store once in a while. But the likelihood is, if you see it in a store, you're going to get it maybe for that original price, but you're probably buying it online where you're probably paying way more than $60 now. The game is just hard to find. It's not impossible, but you're never finding this in a non-board game store. You're finding this in board game stores only, and probably they're going to be in specific style board game stores. So my guess is you're only finding it in 1 out of 5 stores, and if you're finding it online, you're probably paying a lot more than you should. For me, the game's okay, but it's not worth the price that it's going to be out as, and it's not worth the struggle to find it. Thumbs down. Your difficulty. The difficulty is, this is not for kids. This is not for beginners. They are out immediately. Now, this is a huge win for your experts, because if you're an expert and this is your style game, you're going to love this. There's a lot of back and forth, real like negotiation mentally with yourself, trying to figure out, how do I spend my money? What am I targeting? What things should I outbid somebody on? When should I just let somebody win? When should I push somebody because it's, even though I don't need it, they shouldn't be getting it that cheap. So the experts will love this. The experienced, I think back 15 years ago, it was like 50-50. But as the years have gone on, it's been shifting more and more towards people not being that interested. So to me, you don't get kids, you don't get beginners, and you really don't get your experienced. It's the experts only who want to play this, and the old school experts. It's got to be thumbs down. Replayability. This is an exhausting game. I played it the one time, and I remember being like, that was really fun. And they were like, do you want to play again? And I was like, no, nobody did. We were all like, it was a long game. And we kept kind of wanting to go back to play it again, but we just kept on not getting to it. And now I think about it, and I think about anybody I knew who had played it back then, and none of us would want to. There's just not enough intrigue in this game to get you back to the table compared to games that are faster, more fun, have a better theme. It just doesn't have enough in any of its categories to truly compete for that replayability. Thumbs down. Keys to victory. Well, here's one where it finally can hit, because the keys to victory in this game are all over the place. It's how you allocate your money. Are you aiming to try to keep money to make sure you can connect your routes? Are you aiming to be going after producing resources, or are you trying to buy them? Are you going after the early factories, or are you waiting for the better ones later? Are you willing to pay more, or are you trying to take advantage of a deal when you see that there's a few people not interested and there's a chance for you to snag a factory that you don't need it massively, but you could grab it cheap, and that's going to let you really transfer for a while to hold on to your money and build it until the better factory you need later. There are keys to victory here. Thumbs up. Is the game unique? The game's not unique. I feel like this is one of those games that, like I said, it has pieces of it that kind of reflect to the way that you build out on Ticket to Ride, or you build out and then build up in your Catan game. It's one of those resource management, placements, and upgrading style games. You've got resources. There's a lot going on here, but it does reflect a lot of those old Euro style games. And for me, it just doesn't stand out as unique, nor at the top of its class. Thumbs down. Overall, what do I think? This was a great game back in the day. It was. Even though I didn't want to go back and really play it again, it was a great game. It had a legit following. People who've played it can't say that it's bad. It's just a hard one. It's hard to get it to the table. So my suggestion is, do not be afraid to hunt this down at a convention. I know at PAX East, every year I see 2 or 3 copies of this in their free-to-play section. Go and try it. Give it a shot. But I don't think many of you are going to want to spend the money to buy it. And if you are interested, make sure that you do test try it with friends and that they like the game too, because this one is worth too much money and it's too big of a box to take up your space and take up part of your wallet to end up being a game that just sits on your shelf. You need to know you have bodies that can sit with you and play the game and that you're all going to have a good time. Well, it has been day 337, and we've been speaking about the game Power Grid. And you've been speaking to the Meeples Champion. Like, share, subscribe, and check down below in the description where I'll be adding an Amazon link in case you want to get this game for your collection. And don't forget to check me out on the board game arena under the Meeples Champion, and you can try to send over a friend request, game request. I try to jump on a couple times a day. Until next time, I'll talk to you tomorrow.